All right, so welcome everybody. Yes, my name is Clay Morris, and so by day, I am the Environmental Program Manager for Prince William County. So within my group, I have the stream restoration, the reforestation, land use, try to keep the county on track with environmental issues. Some of you may differ in your thoughts about how well we're doing that, but anyway. I am a professor of Appalachian foodways and foraging at Shepherd University. This is my second year of teaching that course. It's a graduate seminar course, extremely rewarding, really enjoying doing this. On TV, I play a forager, I'm a gardener, I am the consummate foodie. I really love food, and that's why we're going to be talking about growing food in a, just growing food because I like food. Ethnobotany, ethnoecology, ethnogastronomy, regenerative agriculture, these are all interests of mine outside of my day job. Food culture, the reason I'm really interested in food culture is it is the great commonality. I may not speak your language, but if I sit down with you and I eat a plate of your food, I am going to understand something about you. And the nice thing is I'm going to learn something that is good. If you're sharing a dish with me, dish is prepared, food is prepared with love, always. So that's why I'm really interested in food and really kind of studying people. I work within three contexts, Native American, Appalachian, and Southern context, because it's all about heritage. Now, quick thing. I am really interested in the transformative learning platform. I teach graduate students, I teach undergraduate students, I teach adults. The problem with many of us, and the thing that we have to kind of break from, is that we have these sets of biases, we have these sets of ways of thinking that sometimes we have to change. And that's going to be particularly true with the way that we manage our landscapes. So I'm going to gloss through this very quickly, but I just want you to kind of understand that what I'm here to do is to get you today to change your mind about the way we typically landscape. We're going to landscape things to grow food for us. We've learned all about the bugs and bunnies today, right? Planting things for wildlife, but we're going to talk about actually planting things for us because we are just part of that system, all right? So part of the whole transformation, this was brought to us by a guy by the name of Mesereau back in the 70s, and he had this whole system. What he talked about, there were these psychological transformations that we had to do. So that means you had to change an understanding of yourself. You had to be brave to look back at yourself and really kind of question what you were thinking. You had to rethink your belief systems. That's really hard to do, especially the older we get. Boy, we get really entrenched in the way we think about things. We have to change our lifestyle. You all are here. You're open to that idea, so I think I'm preaching to the choir. And the reason we need to do this is because we have to kind of realign ourselves. And we have to start thinking about ourselves. We have to realize that we are part of a multicultural self. There's a lot of different ways of thinking in this world that we need to embrace openly. We have to set aside our biases. The ecological self, that's why you're here today. You are trying to rethink, how am I going to manage my landscape to the benefit of ecology? And I think you can do it for both, for ecology and for yourself. And then as part of that, we're going to self-transform. We are going to emerge in a greater way of thinking. This is all very esoteric. I could spend an entire semester of teaching you just this part. The whole point that we're really trying to get to, and the main thing that I'm really interested in, is food security. What I need, our landscapes, what we all need our landscapes to do is the way that we grow food, the way that we manage our landscapes, we need it to be more resilient. One of the ways to do that is to create a food forest. So I'm a forager. So why forage? We always have. As long as we've been a species, we have foraged. It has been really important for us as a species. Part of our history, you use this word called traditional ecological knowledge, TEK. I work with a lot of Native people. And what we realize with a lot of Native people is they have a way of living and existing in relationship with our surroundings, that if we live in sync with it and if we understand it, our lives are going to be a whole lot easier. We typically come to this with a very Western notion that I'm going to shape the ecosystem into what I want it to be, and we are failing miserably at it. There are 4,000 edible plants in the US alone. Any foragers in here? You nibbled on a thing or two or here? All right, there's a tremendous amount of food in here. Now, one thing with foraging, there is edible versus palatable. Yeah, it'll keep you going, but it's going to be nasty. So some of the work that I like to do is that I work with chefs. I give them these foods, and I get these foods. I'm trying to get these foods back into the modern back in on menus, because we're not going to eat them if they don't taste good. And all of it boils down to food security and resiliency. The reason I really got into foraging was when COVID came along, we all lost our minds. There's no food. And there wasn't. Go in the grocery store, there was nothing, right? I looked around, there was food everywhere. And I realized that that was a real problem. So that's why I'm taking this on. Just for health, having a seasonal diet, eating things when they are in seasonal and not eating them when they are not, is what your system is telling you to do. And if you want to change the market forces, if you want to change the commodity forces in this nation, eat what is in season, do not buy what is not. Who's eating tomatoes in January? They taste like cardboard, right? Why are we doing this? And just from the intestinal microbiome, your microbiome in your gut, in your intestine, there's this remarkable biological bacterial assemblage that's helping you digest food. And there is tremendous information telling us that that is shaping the way we think, the way we feel. What's going on in our gut is completely shaping the entire thing that's going on in our system. Now, what they've also found is they've looked at a tribe in Africa called the Dogon. Dogon are a tribe, they're completely foraged. They look at the microbiome. Theirs is 5 times more complex than the Western diet. Guess what they don't have? Cancer, hypertension, diabetes, all these Western diseases, because they realize that just eating these foods creates this balance within our system. Another reason to forage. Let's rewild our diet, connect with nature, history, and culture. It's fun. Knowing that you're empowered and you can walk around, you can find these foods, you can grow these foods that are going to be good for you. Transform our landscape to benefit everyone. Again, not just the bugs and the bunnies. That's what you're all here today, learn about the bugs and bunnies, but let's start growing this stuff for our benefit as well. Broaden our palate. We're going to talk about some weird food today. Yeah, we're going to talk about milkweed. Milkweed's delicious, all right? And it's fun and it's creative. Again, why forage? Always have, particularly cultural. Japanese have a beautiful word called sansai. This means being good to eat. So in the springtime, things start popping up everywhere and they're going around eating them. It's free, it's available. Who likes hostas? Hostas are beautiful. One of my favorite landscape plants. It's a salad. All right? That's why the deer like them so much. Okay? Greek horticulture, familiar plants that are to be eaten. Anytime, that's what they call them. Of course, leave it to the Italians to have beautiful words, piante spontane and erbe salvice. Leave it to the Italians to have beautiful words for these things. All means spontaneous plants. Latin America, they call them calites. Here are a couple of examples. We, of course, have hostas, purslane. You've probably pulled it out of your garden. Wonderful vegetable. You can eat this stuff raw. It tastes wonderful, okay? And I'm going to... Now, my specialty is Appalachia. I do teach Appalachian foodways, so this is my area of interest. The reason I'm interested in Appalachia is 345 edible species in 77 different families. Huge selection of Appalachia. And a lot of this has to do with the geology and all the ecology of the Appalachian Mountains. The most important thing for particularly the Appalachia pre-modern period was you were living on subsistence diets. Everything that you had eaten had been smoked, cured, dried, pickled. Come March, your liver was screaming. It needed greens. Whose granny told them to eat their greens? My grandmother was British, so if it was green and bitter, then it was really good for you. Try to explain that to a little kid, but anyway. So around this time of year, and soon you're going to start seeing these early spring rosettes, these little different things growing up. You're going to see this word called salad, not salad, salad, old-time word. It means any sauteed green. Pokeweed salad. dandelion salad, clover salad. There's all these different salads. Basically, it means anything green that's sauteed. One of my favorite ones is pokeweed. We call this the forager's pufferfish. You've all seen pokeweed, right? Grows big, gets these purple berries on it. Probably threw them at each other as kids and made purple blotches. And they are poisonous if not done properly. However, when I was growing up, and I was raised by a little black lady by the name of Martha Washington, and she taught me, and she sent all us out to eat this. When the pokeweeds first starts coming up, and it's about this tall, you go out and you gather it, and she would take it, she'd have a couple pots of boiling water, and she would boil the water, and she would change it, boil it, change it, boil it, change it, and then she would have a pan full of bacon grease, because bacon makes everything better, and she would saute it up with scrambled eggs, and we would eat this in abundance. And I'm sitting here salivating it because I know very minerally. The reason she was doing that was because of early spring green. It was giving us these things that we needed. There was a little deviousness to it because it's also an anthelmintic. Who knows what that word is? Anthelmintic. Just as you have to deworm your cat and your dog, you had to deworm your children. So this is why we ate pokeweed. So anyway, it is kind of poisonous, so only prepare it if you have a granny or a meemaw nearby to help you prepare this, all right? Left is left and right is right. Okay. Now, some of the big principles that we're going to really touch on is this thing called polyculture. Now, polyculture is the whole idea of you're creating a food mosaic. And so we're going to talk later about how to create your landscape and how to grow things. You're creating a mosaic. This notion of this thing over here and this thing over here, and neither the twain shall meet, has to go away. What we're trying to create is we're trying to create a mosaic. Native Americans are really good at it. Who's heard of the Three Sisters? Classic, classic. Corn, beans, squash, right? And the reason that they grew all these things together is because they complemented each other. We're going to talk about that in a bit more. So that was very common to the Native Americans. In time, the Appalachians kind of took the same approach. It's can't really tell very well in this, what's going on in this picture. But here's a corn stalk, and here's some beans, and here's some squash. What they were trying to do is they're trying to maximize their land available. They had no interest in having a lawn. Lawn is not going to feed you unless you're a browser. Okay, the approach to take with the land was grow those things, be it wild or native or not native, is grow these things. So what happened? We lived like this for years. And then along came, particularly in Appalachia, what happened was the coal mines came in and the logging camps came in. And so the men would leave. And so the guys that knew how to do the farming would leave, and they would go to these camps, and they would come to these places. And don't worry about having to know how to farm or how to do any of this stuff. We got the camp store. We have the grocery store. You don't need to know how to grow food. You'll be fine. We got you. We'll cover it. So we had this loss of ecological knowledge. Now, we still garden, but in terms of actually sustaining and surviving, we've lost a lot of that. Along came the Depression. There's plenty of food. Nobody had any money. So these farms went out of business. So then we started losing farmers, and we started losing these people that knew how to do things. First Farm Bill comes along. You're actually paid to not grow crops. So you limit the supply, therefore the prices stabilize. Farming declined. People left. They went to the cities. We had canned foods. We have the system that kept removing this resiliency, this way of knowing how to grow and protect our own food systems. We handed that over. Now, along comes World War II. We had the Victory Gardens. Not a bad thing. That was kind of a rebound. Okay, we're going to start growing our food again. The problem is the way that it was presented to us. Now you had all these, if you read even the literature, man, we're going to pump out this food. And the garden became a factory. Had nothing to do with all the wonderful edible weeds and stuff. No, those were bad. What we're trying to do is grow as much food as we possibly can. And you see the words, we had all this technology. You see factory as the metaphor. Then after World War II, it really went nuts. New fertilizers and pesticides. And we had all this food, man, all of a sudden, and then we had all these big machines, and we were pumping out food again. We lost a lot of uh, nice pollinators and things along the way. And, DDT, dichlorodyphenyl trichloroethane, used to dust kids with this. All right? We know what it did to the eagles. So anyway, marketplace was overwhelmed. Again, too much food. There was the inability to regulate the supply and demand, 50s and 60s. Then you see this real big shift, time saving. You had to have 2 jobs, so all of a sudden you see the frozen meals and all these things. So again, the food distribution kept taking it away from the people, and we've got it. You go do work, you go do all this other work, and then in the meantime, we're going to grow this food for you. You don't have to worry about knowing how to grow food. By the 70s, Secretary of Ag Earl Butz does a 180. He says, fine, no more small farmers. We're going to go big ag. So you have even fewer farmers, even fewer people actually know how to grow food. Now, market flooded with cheap, low-quality food, but boy, is it dramatically marketed and flashy commercials. But hey, don't grow food. We're going to give it for you. It's all taken care of, right? And then within 2 generations, we see massive food-related illnesses based upon how we eat. So what we got to do, while you're here today, is we're going to start doing this thing called whole systems thinking. During the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, the whole scientific revolution came along. It was all about method. You studied the part, not the whole, because we had all these analytical systems and all these ways of studying the little bits, not the big part. So we kind of lost track of that, and that's kind of a problem with Western thinking. So you get reductionism, we get specialization, and we start losing this connection. We start forgetting how the entire system works. Now, I work with natives, and they keep that in mind. They understand that they are part of an entire system. We've lost that because we tend to compartmentalize. That's just the nature of Western thinking. That's the nature of Western science. So we've got to get back to whole system thinking. Understand how things are related, how they influence one another within a whole. Here's a classic deciduous forest food web. We all kind of grew up with this. We're kind of getting back to understanding there's the producers and there's the consumers and there's the decomposers. They're all reliant upon each other. So we need to kind of keep this system in mind. Now we're going to talk about gardening. And with gardening, there's going to be 2 things. There's going to be the structure, where things are within our garden. And then we have to understand that time's going to pass. So we're going to talk about succession. Ecological systems thinking, ecology, oikos, Greek word, house or place to live. Ecology is the study of living things, organisms, their surroundings, relationships between living things. We have to start thinking about like ecologists. Don't start thinking about the part. So even when you start thinking about the plant that you're going to put in your garden, you're going to start thinking what function, what does it serve? Not that it's pretty, but what function does it serve? Because it's going to be pretty. Of course, that's why we're all here. But it's got to serve an additional function, all right? An ecosystem is an area in which all living and non-living parts form an interacting system. So we are going to turn our garden into an ecosystem. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing, but we're also going to try to make our gardens functional. So we have to start thinking about ecologists. Some of the basic tenets of ecosystem function: dependence on energy flows. Energy's flowing, either it's coming or going, but there's energy constantly flowing through our systems. Solar energy drives geophysical and geochemical cycles. That's just a basic. We're growing plants, we need sunlight. Energy used efficiently creates a stable state. Inefficient use results in instability. So we're going to touch more on this in a bit, because we're talking about what our garden is putting back into the system. We're not going to be raking our leaves anymore. We're going to keep the system functioning. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It can be transformed, stored, or wasted. Anybody heard of permaculture? Okay. Several years ago, I did an entire thing on permaculture. It is a wonderful system. We're going to touch on some of the big topics, but we're not going to do a deep dive. Permaculture is typically an entire system. It takes like 72 weeks just to get 72 hours just to get a basic understanding of permaculture. But we're going to touch on it because the most important thing is understanding that we have to change the way that we think that we're doing our landscapes, right? We have to understand what's going on in our system and that we're working within our system. We're not trying to change or tweak our system. We are trying to actually work with what's in our system. So permaculture, land management that adapts arrangements observed in natural systems. What we're trying to do is encourage the restoration of balance to our environment by the practical application of ecological principles. Permaculture actually provides a philosophy of cooperation with nature and each other. If you really do a deep dive into permaculture, it's not just talking about how to do your landscape, it is talking about how you completely change your lifestyle. But we're not going to cover that a bit too much for today. We're going to focus on design, a conscious process of placement and planning of elements, objects, and processes in relationship to each other. And that is the most important thing, relationships within our gardens. We're all going to have our favorite plants, but if we don't think about how they work and how they interact with each other, our landscape's going to fail. And we're going to spend a lot of time trying to make this landscape work, but if we don't think about how they're all working together, then we're going to struggle. It can be practiced across all landscape scales. What we're really trying to do is establish productive environments for food, energy, shelter, and other needs. Permaculture's landscape. Patterns in nature. The world is a sequence of events within a pattern. This is by Bill Mollison, who kind of created the whole permaculture movement. Now, what he did was he drew heavily, he was an Australian guy, so he drew heavily upon Aborigines. Aborigines have been in Australia for 9,000 years. They knew something. So he went and he studied and he understood how they manage this landscape. One of the things that I always talk about with Native people is we have to dispel this notion that Native people were wandering around getting lucky. There are millions of people on this continent changing the landscape at a scale we cannot imagine. That's going to be a whole nother lecture. But anyway, understanding that this relationship that we have with our landscape is going to help us. And of course, there's all kinds of patterns, seasons, landforms, growth habits, sequences, behavior, migration, reproduction, hibernation, all these different systems and these patterns that are going on. We just have to tune in and observe them and respect them, not try to change them. Just respect that this is what's going on. An understanding of the basic underlying patterns of natural phenomena is an essential tool for design and harmonious living. Understand what's going on in your landscape, work with it. Don't try to change it, work with it. So, first process, and this is what you're going to spend this year doing. You are going to go assess your property. Be it quarter acre, 10 acres. Go to your property, spend a year with it. Know what's going on with it. Know where the water sets, know where the cold spots are, know where the moon, where the sun, because the sun shifts throughout the year. Know what's going on with your property. Spend a year just doing that. Because men, the goal is not to change what's going on with your property. The goal is to work with what's going on in your property. Okay, data collection, observation, record keeping, looking, observing, and perceiving. Do this for a year. Next is come up with your vision plan. Pie in the sky, dream garden, imagination set free. Probably, hopefully today you have been so inspired with your landscape and you have now you have this whole palette. I'm going to do all this knowing where things should happen. That's fine. Run with it. Realize what you want your garden to do. Next is the concept plan. This is where things go. Now I understand what's going on in my property. I know what likes wet. I know what likes cold. I know what can handle sun, what likes shade. I understand that's where that's happening on my property. Now I'm learning about plants. I can know where those things are kind of going to go. Okay, good. The concept plan is oftentimes where reality sets in. Ooh, that's expensive. Ooh, that's going to take time. That's fine. You know, that's fine. It's great to have dreams, but then we have to kind of tailor it to the realities. Does it contradict with basic permaculture? Why am I growing something that likes a dry situation? Why am I growing it over here in this wet spot? Well, I want it there. It's going to fail. You're going to waste money. Don't grow a thing that likes dry in a place that, you know, and that's wet. And then you come up with an action plan, bring vision plan and concept plan all together, create a 5-year plan. There you have, folks. You got 5 years, all right? Spend time, save your money, really come to your landscape with a plan of how to work with it. So, first thing, back to the assessment. We're going to create a map. Go find, Google Earth, whatever. Find some map of your property that shows contours, kind of aerial view, know where the low spots are. Map all these things, know the soil types. Go across your landscape, get little soil samples, send it to Cooperative Extension Service. They will do soil tests. They're going to tell you if your soil is acidic or basic. They're going to tell you all this information. That information is very powerful because the plant that you choose has to be able to grow in that situation. Why are you going to grow something like acidic soil in a basic soil? It's going to die. Don't do that. Just save your money. Do these basic information. Go for the distinguishing features. Here it shows like, here's a shady area, here's a high sun area, here's where all the water sets. Just understand this about your property, okay? So air and water flow, landforms, individual plants. Got this big maple tree. What's going to grow under it? Nothing. All right, that's what maples do. But I really like the maple tree. Okay, then keep the maple tree. Just understand that what that maple tree is going to do. Don't try to plant stuff under it because nothing's going to grow under it. But it still has a function, okay? Look for the patterns. Now, you have the building blocks. You have both living organisms and you have non-living elements. Some are concrete, not going to change. Nothing you do. Your house is not going to change. The shade that your house puts on your landscape is not going to change. The water coming off your roof and where it's going is probably not going to change. So understand these bits about your landscape. Some are malleable. Some you can change. Some you can move them around. Some you can tweak. Got to understand what's going on. So both the living and the non-living actually perform very specific and sometimes desired functions. And what you have to do is work at the relationships. The biggest thing is really kind of knowing what's going on and not fighting it. Not seen as a bad thing, but understanding this is the influence it's having. How can I work with it? Sometimes that means adjusting our expectations. But I really want this bush here. Well, that bush is going to die there because that bush does not belong there, okay? So we have to adjust our land. We have to adjust our expectations. What we're really going for is compositional diversity. We want as many different things, both organisms and species, and we also need lots of variety input. The more that we have going on in our landscape and the more diversity that we bring into our landscape, the more stability we're going to have. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So you might have heard this word, agroecosystems. This is why we're here today. So what we're looking for is both planned and unplanned diversity in our ecosystems. We're looking for spatial and temporal, space and time, arrangement of domesticated plants and animals and native plants in an ecosystem. I just created the heresy of a native plant symposium because I am talking about bringing in domesticated plants and animals. I don't care. Nancy Veers is not in here, so she'll survive. All right. The way I look at it is that you can create a natural ecosystem, and at the same time, you can also introduce the foods that we want to eat within that ecosystem. And there's a benefit to doing that, okay? Sometimes you see these words also integrated: forest gardening, native plant agriculture, forest garden, edible forest, food forest. What? All right. What is a food forest? A diverse planting of edible plants, be it domestic or native, that attempts to mimic ecosystems and patterns in nature. Why do that? Well, because nature's really good at a lot of things, right? Really good at pest management. Some plants bring in predators to pests. So if I have that plant there and it's bringing in predators to these things that are going to eat the other stuff in it, good thing, right? Because how else do you bring in a predator? So just have something there that the predator likes to live on, and now you've kind of accomplished that. Fertilization. Things grow and they drop leaves and they nitrify the soil. Certain plants that serve that function. Weed suppression. Have a whole bunch of things. You don't have any bare space. You have all this stuff growing. You have shade. You can have weed suppression. Nitrogen fixation. Some things, particularly the Fabaceae, the members of the beans families, are really good at nitrogen fixing. So it's just a natural fertilization going on. Water retention. Some plants are just really good at that. Right now, really big one, carbon sequestration, climate stabilization. Having intact forests with lots of things growing in is one of the best climate strategies we have. That's a bit esoteric, so we're not going to go too far down that. Here it is. So the whole point of trying to have as much diversity in your system as this thing, this is a classic ecological principle. The diversity hypothesis says the more varied the species composition of space, the more resilient it is to perturbations, pests, disease, climates. I have a whole bunch of different things growing in a certain space, particularly say like with pollinators, and I have one plant that fails. That's okay, because I have other plants that can fill that niche. This is huge. I work with the Pamunkey tribe. Anybody heard of Pocahontas? Pocahontas, okay. She's a Pamunkey, have a tribe, the Powhatan Confederacy. They have a reservation down near King's Dominion in King William County. And first contact people, when the settlers showed up, they had all these areas cleared, and they had this mosaic. They had all these different foods growing. And they were out there working it, but they were weeds, and then they come along and they were growing corn, but they would have patches. And some would be, here's this berry bush, or here's this native plant that I can eat, and then here's this patch of corn. And the English came like, we want you to grow fields of corn. We want you to grow fields of wheat because we want to grow it and export it. And it was the women, because the women were the farmers. They were also warriors. They're like, what fool grows one kind of crop that my enemy can come and torch? And they were part of the ecosystem. They understood that by having this varied, if I have all these different foods, if something happens to one, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to have other things. Now, that's a very anthropomorphic way of thinking, but it's the exact same thing. When we do ecological restoration, we try to plant a lot of different things because we're trying to fill all these different niches, because if something happens to one, we're going to be okay. We're going to do the same thing with the landscape. So you want to incorporate diverse elements. Each should provide multiple functions. The more provision of niches, the more things you're going to have going on in your landscape, the more pollinators, the more predators, the more consumers, the more producers. You're going to have all this kind of going on. You're going to go for a reduction of competition. This is really big with invasives. If I fill this space with all kinds of things that I want, less of a chance for invasives to get in there. Increase productivity and yield. If I have more pollinators in one space and they're doing the pollinator thing, then my system's going to just thrive because I've provided this space for them. We're going for stability and resilience. That's just the very diversity hypothesis whole idea. Reduced herbivory. Deer's going to come in. He can only eat so much. Some things are going to survive. Some things are going to make it. And it's just pretty. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, look at all that. Now, one thing to think about when we're trying to create our gardens is we're going for living organisms. We have to generate functional interconnections. What does that mean? This is getting a little esoteric. Bear with me. So it's going to be best between kingdoms. So if we want bees, then we're going to grow the flowers that bees like. If we want a nice mycorrhizal community, we're going to grow those plants that support a mycorrhizal community. We're going to really dig deep about how important soil is. Okay, we are going to talk about a whole species list, but this is more important about creating a nice, healthy atmosphere before you even plant a bloody thing. All right, we're going to go for taxonomic diversity, different orders and families of plants. You want diversity. You don't want the same of all one kind of order. Perfect example is particularly the Rosaceae. Do not plant a bunch of members of the Rosaceae family. Why? Because Japanese beetles love all of them. Now, there are different plants within, so if you have a certain function you're trying to go for, there are certain plants that will have the same adaptations, the same, fill the same niches, but you don't want all of one kind of thing because you do not have diversity. You've opened up your system. So remember, just think about diversity. Now, this is, again, very esoteric, and I can't go too deep on this, but think about when you're doing your selection of the diversity that you need to bring into your system. Of course, the non-living, and this is the most important part. It's not the pretty plants, not the pretty pictures, and here's my list of all these beautiful plants. You're getting that from elsewhere. What I really want to talk to you about is getting the system going, You have to create a very nice stable system before you plant a bloody thing. All right? So most important, what's going on in the soil? Nutrients. Get that soil test. You got Cooperative Extension Service here today. They will talk to you. Go around your landscape, get these soil tests. This is going to tell you what's going on in your soil. That's huge because you'll spend a lot of time, effort, and money of not knowing why something's not working. And based upon your soil test, if it says, you need more nutrients, then use organic amendments, but just to the point, all right? So most important thing, and where almost everything fails, is the mycorrhizal community. The mycorrhizal community is the fungi. The fungi and the stuff that we do not see. What's going on in our soil is critical to processing all those nutrients that we're going to be adding. If we do not have a stable and healthy mycorrhizal system, you can add stuff all day long. It's not going to work because you have not addressed the basic of the community, okay? What we're going for, the primary consumers, the chewers and the shredders. We want bugs in our garden. We need them, all right? We need that stuff in there that's breaking down all these leaves. Start breaking your leaves up. Let the leaves stay there, add stuff to it. Have this community form, because what they're doing is they're breaking and they're releasing all of these different materials and nutrients. Provide them habitat, provide them the food, the water, and the shelter. That's really simple to do. Leave the leaves, just stop raking your leaves, put them in somewhere. Have dead wood, have brush, have rock piles, because all of these organisms need food, water, and shelter. If we provide that in our ecosystem, we're going to be starting that. Site preparation, soil test, I'm going to drive that home. Take time. Understand what's in your soil. Take time. Now, it's going to change. Field, forest, or suburban lot. If it's a field, it's going to have different influences throughout the year. If it's a forest, it's going to have a whole different condition. If you're a suburban lot, particularly the one I live in, the soil was scraped and the ground is as hard as this. There's nothing there. So there's going to be different conditions. I will not be able to grow something in my yard that perhaps you could grow in a forest. Have to understand that. All kinds of different ways to prepare that site. Adaptive versus planting site modification. Adaptive, I'm just going to kind of work with what I have. Some of it you may have to really do a deep dig, amend the soils, and change the soils, depending on how much your soil test will help you that. All going to boil down to time, effort, money, and patience. And the most important thing is tweak it, don't twist it. What do I mean by that? It means this soil is really acidic. Okay, I could add all these amendments and I could get it basic for a while. But be okay with it being acidic and grow things that can survive in acidic soil. Do not try to completely reverse and change what you have. Learn to live with it, because you will spend a tremendous amount of time, effort. Who grows hydrangeas, right? Oh, if it's pink, and blue's acidic and pink is basic, and people spend all this money trying to turn their hydrangeas from pink to blue, which you can do through pH. Okay, but fertilizer's expensive. What's wrong with a blue hydrangea? Just learn what you have and work with it. There are all kinds of plants. Just grow with what will be happy there. That way you'll save time, effort, and money. Mulch. And if you don't want to spend money for fertilizers, just mulch it. Mulch is free, cheap, and easy, generally. One of the best ways to go. Maintains moderate soil moisture. It's a weed barrier, eliminates erosion, improves soil structure. It's a slow-release fertilizer, provides habitat for microorganisms. This is that whole mycorrhizal community you're trying to get. When you see mushrooms, this is the bit you see what's going on underneath. Mushrooms in your garden are a wonderful indication that you have a wonderful mycorrhizal community going on. All the nutrient breakdown is going on in that system. So if nothing else, mulch. Okay? All right. How are we doing on time? Okay. So let's get started. Again, I could go on for a semester about how to do this, but we're going to get a crash course in it. So, two approaches. Either you have an existing forest, and you want to tweak it, or you, like me, that I went from existing forest and now I have suburbia. But that's fine. I look at my landscape and I realize I have to do it somewhat differently. Now, what we're ultimately trying to do is we're trying to imitate a forest, no matter how big it is. So this is a wonderful book, Peterson's Field Guides, Edible Wild Plants. These are typically all native. 15 minutes. All right. Whew, I talk. So this is a wonderful book. Kind of go through it, see the plants that you want to do. And so, yeah, getting started. There's types of plants. And this is just very structural, okay? There's herbs, shrubs, trees, creepers, and climbers. And they kind of explain too, an herb is a small with woody stems, shrubs, medium, bushy with woody stems. Of course, we know what a tree is. Creepers are the things that go across the ground. We have climbers, things that like to go up a tree. And then there are also different strata. There's the canopy species, the above canopy, canopy, mid-story, sometimes they're heard called subcanopy. There's the understory, there's the ground cover. So remember, we talked about spatial. So what we're trying to do is get as much variety, not just in terms of different organisms, but within all the different spatial categories that we have in our landscape. This also has, this all talks about birds. So if you want to bring certain kinds of birds, this is where they're going to exist. I'm just more interested in understanding the whole spatial part of it. So we want to mimic the verticality of forest. So in traditional gardens are typically kind of long and low. We're going for that English garden, right? It's just kind of this long and low, and isn't it beautiful? And we can pick things, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a forest. So it's three-dimensional. The reason is more life, both in a macro in terms of the plants that are actually living there, but if the more verticality that we have, then the more bugs and the insects and the small things that we don't see are going to be able to find a space within here. Functions in both space and time, spatial versus temporal. What we really want is we want it to be self-perpetuating. We want to grow trees and shrubs and perennials and self-seeding annuals. We want this thing, we want to plant it, and then we want it to kind of take care of itself. Now, forest building blocks, you're going to have things called guilds. So when you start looking in the literature, you're going to start thinking guilds. Guilds are talking about different groups that serve certain functions. The first one is you have the nitrogen fixer. If your soil's in good shape and it has microbes, then it's going to be fixing nitrogen. Nitrogen is critical to plant life. You can grow legumes, Fabaceae members. These are plants that are really good at fixing nitrogen. Natural, the way to do it. Don't have to put down a bag of fertilizer. Just have plants that are good at nitrogen fixing. Living mulches. These are plants that grow and they make all kinds of big leaves, and we chop them down and we just use the leaves as living mulch. Leaves are a wonderful mulch. We do not need to buy mulch. Oh, sorry, got a little carried away there. All right, nutrient catchers, dig deep. So this is where you're going to grow certain plants that have really deep tap roots, and they get down there and they draw the nutrients up. Comfrey. Comfrey is a wonderful plant that does that. Really deep roots, sucks up the nutrients. Then you chop off the comfrey leaves and just use it as fertilizer. And then we want the pollinators. This is the one we all are more comfortable with, the insect attractors that do pollination, decomposition, assassination. So this is a guild. Now we're going to talk about the plants, the foraging plants. Springtime has 3 seasons. Springtime, eat your greens. And we have lots of plants that do that. Now we're starting to think about the plants that we're going to eat. So dandelion, spring beauty. Makes a little tuber like a potato. You can eat it. Yes, dandelions is here. Dandelions, when I ask what is the favorite forage plant, dandelion. An amazing plant. We spend billions of dollars trying to get rid of this plant. 100 years ago, this was sold in seed catalogs. It's a deobstruent, wonderful, wonderful plant. You can use every bit of it. Spring beauty, violets, milkweed. Yes, milkweed. When it first starts coming up, really young, you can eat the young, you can blanch them. Again, you can eat the early shoots. You can eat the florets. You can take the flowers and make a beautiful syrup out of it. You can eat the milkweed pods if done properly. Mints, ostrich fern. If you like fiddlehead fern, ostrich fern. Broadleaf cattail, number 3 in my top foraging plants. Roundleaf greenbrier, and greenbrier starts coming up. Next time you see it and you see this little tip, take a pinch. When it's really nice and tender, tastes like a lemony asparagus. Wonderful plant. The deer know it because oftentimes you'll see that they've been munched on. Summertime, all kinds of berries: serviceberry, huckleberry, blueberries, chokeberry, elderberry, viburnums, prunus, blackberries, sumac, pawpaw, milkweed, broadleaf. These are all the plants that are kind of doing their thing in the summertime that we can take advantage of, work into our garden. Sumac, I think, is one of the most beautiful plants in the landscape. Makes a wonderful lemonade. In the fall, we're looking for the fats and the starches, so we need the oaks and the hickories and the persimmons and the walnut, the Solomon seal, the Jerusalem artichoke. Yes, burdock, all right. Not a native, but burdock is a wonderful plant that gets that root down in there, pulls up those nutrients. These are all foods that provide us fats because the lifestyle that you lived had been very strenuous, so you had to have a source of fat all the time. Acorn flour is a delicious, something delicious. Medicinal, sure. Yarrow, bee balm, boneset, Joe Pye weed, Carolina rose, really pretty. Pollinators love it. Might as well have it in your garden. Now, how are we going to go about creating food for us? You have to know something about the plants you're going to put in there. All right? This is a wonderful, so this was a challenge for me. I'm like, well, there's all kinds of information available out there. This is from Plant Nova Natives. We have them out in the hallway, right? Their book is here. So I was like, okay, I have to create a food forest. I'm going to take available information. One of the ways to do that is to have this plant list. And this tells me, here's the name of the plant. Is it a shade tree? Is it an understory tree? Is it a flower? It tells me how big it's going to get. That's really important because when you grow it, it's this big, and then it's going to get that big. Knowing how big the width of it, how much sun it needs, how much moisture. So armed just with that information, we're going to pull together planting plans. All right, so this is a hickory guild. Hickory is probably my favorite nut. Makes a wonderful, wonderful nut. My absolute favorite is pig nut hickory. The nuts, you make a Cherokee national dish called canucci. Wonderful source. And then, so here, remember, so we talked about the layers. I'm rushing here. Sorry, I'm almost out of time. So canopy, understory, shrub, herb, root, ground cover, vine. There they are. Those are the 7 layers. And just drawn from that Plant Nova Natives list. They, I could have used other lists, but just restricting myself to the Plant Nova Native list and the information that provides me, I create this guild. So I have my canopy tree, my pig nut. I have my mulberry, which is my understory tree. There's a flowering raspberry as my shrub, wild bergamot as my herb, Jerusalem artichoke. The whole point of the Jerusalem artichoke, it does 2 things. It makes a wonderful vegetable, but it also gets in there and it loosens up the soil. Sometimes that's a real challenge. Having something that really just gets in there and breaks the soil apart for you is a wonderful reason to have a root vegetable in there. And then we have the fragrant sumac, and passion flower is our vine. Either they're going to feed me, or they're going to feed a bird, or a bunny, or a caterpillar, or something. So it's not just about foods for me. Not everything is going to provide food for me. Some of it's going to provide food, but just having their presence in my garden is going to benefit all of us. Here's the wet-ish guild. All right, persimmon, the canopy tree. Pawpaw. Anybody had pawpaw? Oh, love pawpaw. Spice bush makes a wonderful shrub, aptly named. Bee balm. I love bee balm just because it's pretty, and the pollinators love it. Groundnut. Anybody had groundnut? Actually very common around here, and it's actually, you can eat both the pods and also gets these tubers. This was a very classic Native American food, particularly in this area. This is a wonderful plant. I wish we could get back here. And of course, ostrich fern is both an herb and a ground cover. Small area guild. So I have a townhouse, or I don't have a townhouse, but I have a small lot, and so I want to do this. So I'm going to get downy serviceberry because I like the berries. They're tasty. I'm going to grow sumac because I have sumac in everything because I love sumac. It's just an amazing bush, both for nutrition and just as an architectural plant. Truly spectacular. I'm going to go on and on about it. Elderberry is always fun. Narrowleaf mountain, Solomon seal root. beautiful plant here. It's going to go a root. It's going to break up the soil as well for me. Wild strawberry is a great ground cover. Yes, we do have a wild strawberry. It's not that Duquesne, that Indian strawberry. We do have a wild strawberry that grows around here. And then passion flower, because passion flower is just another beautiful plant. Now, invasives. Yeah, you're going to get them. You're going to start seeing this one showing up, hairy bittercress. It's delicious. It's a member of the cress. It's a land cress family. It's got that wonderful peppery flavor to it. And if you're pulling it, might as well eat it. So yeah. Field garlic, same thing. By itself, horrible and unctuous, but if you chop it up, mix it with olive oil, get this wonderfully flavored olive oil. Lamb's quarters. Grows in all kinds of farm fields. Wonderful, wonderful substitute to spinach. So I'm an invasivore. If you can't beat it, eat it. All right? If you got to pull it, might as well make use of it. Garlic mustard. Probably I think I just read that is the most invasive plant that we have in this region. So you got to pull it. That's the way to get rid of it. Makes an amazing pesto. Trust me. Daylilies. Get too many daylilies, you got to thin them. They're going to have these wonderful little tubers on it. Taste just like a russet potato. Wood sorrel. Wood sorrel makes a beautiful, I make a smoked trout mousse. I add this to it because it gives that very lemony quality. If you are prone to kidney stones, don't do that because it does have oxalic acid. All right, so here's some information about me. Email, phone, twice a week or twice a month at Salamander Resort from April to November. I do foraging. A lot of the foraging is we have to elevate these foods. So come meet me there out at Salamander. We hike about, I elevate these foods. I do a class at L'Auberge Provençal. Here's the dates for that. If you're interested in doing a private tour of your property, call me up. I'll come out. We'll try to do that as well.